Hi everyone, I'm Leandro, a PhD scholar at the University of Edinburgh and KU Leuven, and my doctoral project seeks to explore collaborative environments' potential, their help to understand change and disrupt epistemic injustice. What I'll do today is read a brief text which I wrote recently, and I will be sharing some slides that will accompany some of this text. So this written material is an attempt to perform what creative relational inquiry can do in the context of reviewing critically an academic paper, advocating for a process that is more than simply a review. So inspired by the work of Alison Fixon, Communities in Crisis, and Autoethnography of Psychosis Under Lockdown, I use creative relational inquiry as a conceptual framework to put forward an argument about inquiring the everyday life. I will address three core issues. So the value of autoethnographic work, what can a relational ontology do, and then the contribution of this presentation, which is to advocate for a review more focused on relating with. To do so, my aim is to enter Alison Fixon's work as if we were having a conversation. So I am imagining this encounter. So I'll start reading the text and you'll find some accompanying slides. I imagine it's Wednesday, 10th of November, and I managed to arrive early at the university library, and it's 8:15 a.m. And as I sit down on the wooden desk, the first thing that I would like to share with you is that I resonate with you, Alison. I am with you on the claims about the mental health field, ongoing profound reformulations in its practice and research. These movements attempt to work through the skepticism towards conventional treatments and procedures anchored on the dominant presence of medicalized models providing reductionist explanations for human beings' complexities. It is your psychotic experience, Alison, in a psychiatric ward that comes as a vivid entry point to understand something different about psychosis and how it speaks to cultural issues, for example, peer relationships in mental health institutions, power dynamics, and inequalities. So the use of interpretative autoethnography could be seen as a disruptive way to understand psychosis beyond medicalized discourses. As I listen imaginatively to you, Alison, it seems that the interpretative approach to autoethnography filters a way of framing reality as multiple. So your account is one of many. It adds to conversations about mental health, and it doesn't seem to seek for universal truths. And instead, it takes ordinary moments during your stay in a psychiatric ward as valid sources to understand an angle of reality. It reminds me of Caroline Ellis' use of epiphanies, referring to ordinary happenings in a person's life that impacted somehow the trajectory of life itself. It seems that your text mirrors a reality experience through a specific standpoint. So what you feel, think, feel, or write about doesn't come out of nowhere, and you make it explicit. It seems to be implicitly advocating for what Bondi and Fuel refer to as experience near research, one that stays close to the feelings, to subjectivity, and how lived experience, for example, a psychosis crisis, is honored in the writing of an academic paper. I imagine, and as I write this, I suddenly wonder if your account, Alison, is or could be more than interpretative. I want to share with you what your text is doing with me. So the paper pushes me to wake up early today, Wednesday the 10th, and I've read your article during the weekend and again yesterday. I felt intrigued. I think on the review I could develop, but it does more than that. It takes me back to 2012, and I'm on my clinical psychology internship in Peru. A moment comes to mind, a ritual held every Tuesday at 10 a.m. in which all the professionals within the service had to attend an interview held by one of the psychiatric interns with a psychotic patient. The service manager claims vigorously, "This is only for learning matters." I suddenly still feel the nauseous and recall my body rushing outside of the room, feeling like I was about to faint. I couldn't or I didn't want to be part of it, and yet I was there. I remained there, complicitly enacting dominant and expected practices wearing my white medical gown every Tuesday at 10 a.m. But why am I bringing this up? Maybe there is something happening here in the moment in this process as I relate with you, with your words and your work. I think multiple realities seem to imply that there are separated units of reality. There is Allison's reality and my reality as Leandro, as I think and write about your article. And yet, I am curious about the possibilities of an in-between reality, a relational ontology perhaps. So I wonder if autoethnography is grounded in the subject, in you or in me, maybe a bit too constrained, as if experience could be extracted from us as humans easily, grounded in human-to-human encounters. Could autoethnographies find new openings through accounts which are not fixed on the properties of subjects or objects, but rather in a state of always becoming, always moving, entangled? I imagine, inspired by Caroline Ellis, you work with emotional recall, and this seems to allow the appearance of vulnerable material from yourself and produce evocative stories which bridge the personal narrative to discuss the cultural, a writing into the visceral, perhaps Ronald Elias would argue. However, I have some troubles with emotional recall. It seems to place our human intensities, vibrations, and emotions in a linear scale. So Brian Masumi and Barnwell would claim a fundamental difference between emotions and affects. Emotions as anchored on the personal, on the cognitive structures, and on the other hand, affect as the vibrations, the intensities that have not yet been pinned down in words. So affects are still always moving and haven't been fixed down to a concept. I want to be clear that I'm not critiquing your experience, Allison, since I would argue with Tony Adams, in which autoethnographic accounts may be incontestable. What I'm arguing for is what we can do with this kind of knowledge. So for instance, how reading your text on Wednesday the 10th takes me to 2012 and my clinical psychology internship, not to see how the past influences the future or vice versa, or to pin down experience, but instead to see what happens when they come across, when they suddenly meet, when I am caught by surprise. So they, I, you, there seems to be happening something that exceeds ourselves, that exceeds our time or our subjectivities. I'm wondering about that. I imagine this is only for learning matters. The words from a former service manager strike again. Who is this learning for and why? And who decides what and why? I value how you've been able to navigate the ethical aspects of your paper, the use of pseudonyms, paraphrasing content, orally granted consent, and omitting specific details that may reveal a person's identity. Nonetheless, I'm left wondering about what is left aside, by whom or through which mechanisms. Perhaps these questions are for you, Allison, but they also seem to be haunting me as I try to work out my ethics application form for my own research. This text has been a small attempt to perform what creative relational inquiry can do in the context of reviewing critically an academic paper, advocating for a process that is more than simply a review. In our current academic world, where systematic evidence-based practice, reviews, and strict protocols dominate the scene primarily through a positivistic logic, we need to embrace, or I need to embrace, movements that expand the ways in which we engage with these practices, even through small acts like this one. A review more focused on relating with, focused on the processual, perhaps not to locate the text in fixed categories, but to enter the ontological and epistemological assumptions to relate with where the text is coming from and where it leads us or it may lead us. A review more focused on relating with to explore the act of relating in itself, like how by reading your text, Allison, about a psychotic experience in a psychiatric ward, I am taken into this writing process, into how psychotic experience is more than a diagnosis label, and how my own experience in a psychiatric ward is also moved with its own marks in the body. So a review that is more focused on relating with, to highlight that even in a short paper like this one, there is still something that continues to become, to evolve, to change about my own understanding of what autoethnographies can do, or how, although it's been 10 years since I engaged with my clinical psychology internship, there is still something there that continues to become. And that as we hold on, or as I hold on to uncertainty, we can be caught by surprise and explore new openings that may have a place in response to public health's apparent affective numbness. So that's all for me now, and thank you for being there. And yeah, that's all. Thank you.